we edit, don't do this live.
Oh, we're on Twitch. Welcome to the Digital Editor's Toolbox. Yeah. This is a panel I've wanted to do for a while where we talk about fun software and hardware solutions a bunch of podcast producers and editors have found for you to start your podcast, or if you've been a podcaster for a while, to learn some new tips and tricks. My name's Anthony Vito. I'll be moderating this thing. I've edited over 1,200 episodes of podcasts for 48 different clients, including Split Zone Duo, the Bay Area Examiner, and a ton more. I'm also the in-house producer for Storyboard Technologies, which is an at a private podcasting host. I will send it on over.
My name is Gabriel Perez. I am a professional audio engineer with the Clip Roll podcast. I've done composing of music, classically trained in music production and things like that, and composition. And I do this stuff at cons. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Tony Sarakia. I'm the creator of the Harry Strange radio drama, the Lady Sherlock Mysteries, Scarlet Hood Adventures, and the Monster Universe. Come on up and get a ribbon. That's actually, we just dropped our first trailer. So most of the things that I do are generally more on the non-tech side, although I did, with Harry Strange, actually probably produced 50 of the 59 episodes that were out. So I learned a lot of the stuff in the dark ages of the 2010s. So Audacity was my friend.
Audacity, so good.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Scott Moore. I'm the editor for Goblins and Growlers and occasionally QPR when Gabe is off gallivanting in the forest. I first got my start with the Blood Code Stories, which was serialized, I can't pronounce that word for my life, horror podcast with each season having its own self-contained story and as well as an overarching story. Did that for 6 years. Also, I'm an AV tech, and I'm the lead tech here for the digital media track. You've probably seen me running around like crazy, getting all the gear to work.
I'm Stephanie Perniola. I've been editing music and audio since you had to cut a cassette tape and tape it back together where you wanted it to go. Now I am a content strategist, which includes a lot of digital editing, video and audio. I also host and edit a few podcasts, including Protest Too Much, which is a Shakespeare showdown. In addition, an Adventure Incorporated, which is a D&D podcast, like everyone else has a D&D podcast.
Y'all gotta understand what editing on tape is such a flex.
Real to real.
Such a flex of how old I am.
We're going to talk about that. No, I'm kidding. So I have some homework.
You don't have to worry about that. But.
Because you all decided to come to this panel, I have some homework. Think about if you have any questions you want to hear from us, and if you were just starting or if you have podcasts. While you're thinking about that, let's talk about the charities. DragonCon charity partner for 2023 is Cure. Cure is dedicated to conquering childhood cancer through funding targeted research while supporting patients and their families. Use the QR codes to donate. DragonCon matches up to $125,000. We also take cash. Our track sponsor for 2023 is Zakat. For over 22 years, they've been empowering lives through disaster relief, food distribution, orphan care, and more. Their top-notch ratings from Charity, Navigator, and BBB Wise Giving Alliance means your contributions are going to make a difference. Learn more at zakat.org or take these QR codes and feel free to donate to these amazing causes. So now that we have that, we also have
one more thing, sorry. There's a QR code in the middle here for our digital media track. You can join our Discord if we don't get to answer your questions, or if you want to network and ask more questions. We have a very friendly Discord. All of us are on there. Feel free to join and become part of the community.
What would I do without Scott? Thank you, sir. Okay, so your homework is due. So because we want to cater to everybody who's here, who here has a podcast?
Yes.
Who here has recorded more than 10 episodes?
Nice.
How about more than 50? Do I have 100?
No.
Do I have 200? Almost. Okay, fantastic. So we have a lot of. That's amazing. 200 is great. So we will talk about some things here in a moment. How many people listen to podcasts? Excellent. And how many people want to start a podcast? I got 3. Fantastic. Okay. So the most common question that we'll normally get is, where do I even start? Well, if you have any questions, does anyone have any questions that they want to learn from us as of right now? We can give you the catch box. Ask away. One question.
So,
That's a Twitch
I don't
computer.
know, I don't know, I'm a little.
It's very soft. If you drop it, it's okay.
Let's see how we do it. Next check.
Yeah. I shorted
Hit the ceiling.
Everyone has Twitch this year's.
No, talk into it. It's a microphone.
So
Oh.
my question is, as editors, we're very much part of the creative process, even if it's kind of an unsung part of the creative process.
Mhm.
When you are dealing with, let's say, either a fiction or a nonfiction podcast, and the performers go kind of off track with some kind of improvised, oh, we're riffing. Can any of you share instances when there has been a riff and you have had to say to a performer, you know what, that's just a little too far off track? Like, how do you differentiate between that which is, funny enough to be included or interesting enough to be included versus that which is kind of like, this is going on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, I can jump
Yeah,
in. I have redirected actors and said, that's pretty funny, but let's go ahead and stick with the script. I mean, it's just, there's not, some of the stuff that my actors have riffed on, it was great. It improved it 100, 200%. Some of it, not so much. And it was just a matter of, look, I'm the director. I wrote the script. This is where we're going to go. And they're all professional. I mean, generally, they're all professional, and they know that they can do. But I mean, part of that was my fault because I ran a pretty loose table reads, when we were recording in the studio, and we would record things over and over. Now the guy in the studio who's actually recording would probably get cranky because he was spending days just listening to everybody trying to be funny. But yeah, I just called them back and said, no, we can't do that.
So for Blood Crow Stories, I had a co-producer who was the writer, and we kept it a little looser, but it also depended on the actor. We knew some actors who were very good at like, they had a vision for their characters and they had discussed it prior to with Ellie, and we've had actors who have rewritten whole parts, and it was approved by because I was the guy hitting the record button. So if she gave it the thumbs up, cool. Usually the issue we had was keeping the voice actors on track because you get bored in there. If I have to like switch up if I have to make a change in my doll or something, and they get more than a minute of spare time, they start riffing. Which I told them, if you're going to be funny, just I'd always shout at them, stop being funny. I'm not recording.
Yeah.
Right.
Because at least if I'm recording, I can catch it for outtakes and stuff like that, and that's also a thing you can use that for, of like, hey, this was an awesome performance. This doesn't work with the script, but hey, as a Patreon extra or a behind the scenes vignette, here's some cool stuff that our actors have done.
Was that
Ellie Collins.
Excellent.
I had a question actually.
Go for it.
So I'm a writer. My name is John Colin Hilton. My writer is Joe by Kyle, but I'm Captain Wolf always in Department.
Cool.
I'm actually starting to get into DMing for Dungeons and Dragons. My question actually has to do with editing quite a bit. Because I've been writing my books since I was 13. What would you say is the best advice for an editor that they're not sure about the end results?
So what's
I mean, so like the end goal is clear, but how you reach there is a little like, if you're editing something and you have to be very unbiased with it, what's the best way to do that as an editor?
Well, so there's a lot of ways that like it depends on the relationship between like the writer and editor, kind of like Scott was saying. But like for the podcast that I do, I don't know all of the ways that the story can go. Alex is the GM for it. She's the main writer, but she will tell me certain things because I'm not a player into things. It should be like, this character is for sure super evil, but secret evil. And so I'm like, cool, secret evil theme coming right up. Kind of
And
thing.
that actually goes to what I was saying, like, you're being the editor yourself, which I am at this point. Like, what, and I had one extra follow-up question is that, as you're editing, how do you become less unbiased? Because you have to be.
Oh, are you saying, so you are both writer and editor in this instance? I would say best thing in that realm, when you're trying to edit and you're not trying to give things away or be unbiased. I mean, for me, I always think of it, and this also goes like when you are GMing for like a live thing, or in any instance where other people are listening, the product is not for your players; it's for an audience type of thing. And so, kind of think in the frame of the edit when you're GMing, when you're writing. Think of the edit. Think of how it's going to sound for the audience.
Okay.
Because
And I
then
do that
players
quite
are
a
going
bit,
to also
but
work
I think
well.
what you're saying is simply like, don't try to control it too much, but to know when to, like, I need to chime in and I need an extra opinion when I'm not sure, because I am mostly the editor.
So is this your show?
Vito, I think
Or
the
Pretty
TV
much,
went
and
to
also my book at the same time.
So
I think the TV went
yeah,
to
you don't have to worry. I mean, I would throw out there like you don't necessarily have to worry about being unbiased.
Yeah, and
It's
that's
your
what
vision.
I'm, cause like, I didn't have an editor, but she's far too busy for it, so I had to resume role.
Yeah.
And I can do that, but like, it takes me quite long, and I'm writing this for 30, I'm now 31 years old. I have a long way to go, but it's the magic within, that is the magic within by Captain Wolf J. Connors. Anyway, who else has a question?
Awesome. Wow. Oh, beautiful talks. And beautiful talks. We're getting better.
So I just got a boring
You're
technical
saying,
question.
This is a bunch of tech people. There are no boring technical questions.
Okay, so we got 3 hosts, 3 microphones. If the gain's up enough for everyone to sound good, each microphone picks up everyone else to a certain extent. So I spend a lot of time in editing, muting the non-active tracks. Is there a good way to automate that at all?
Say muting or is everyone in the same room?
Yeah, everyone's in the same room. I think like physically there's not a good way to eliminate it. So in the editing stage, aside from manually, which is what I'm doing now, manually highlighting whenever someone's not talking and muting it.
Are all 3 mics going to the same like stereo output, or are they each going to their own like mono output?
They're each going into a Zoom recorder. Each have their own mono channel.
Well then, I was gonna say I mean, you're gonna have audio bleed always, but that's how we started recording the Roll. It was all in the same studio with 4 mics shared amongst 5 people. And yeah, we just like if someone was like into their mic, I could just kill that, but that was something that only pick up on their mic. But if they were talking, it'll pick up on someone else's mic, and that's kind of okay.
Yeah, I think that embracing audio bleed is going to be your best friend, because if you try to mute the bleed on every track individually, you're going to drive yourself absolutely bonkers.
I do and I do.
Yeah, it's
So
okay.
mute it in post.
Like, it's just exactly like if you've got mouth noises, or if you have something that you need to delete, it's not going to hollow out the main voice as much as you might be worried that it does. And I'm going to say something controversial and brave.
So excited.
You should, but do care more about those kinds of things than your audience ever will. I drove myself nuts editing our D&D podcast to the point where I had to stop because it was taking me 3-4 hours to edit. And so now my husband does it, or he was doing it. And there were things that I would pick up on, and literally no one ever noticed.
Yeah, after
And it made me feel a little bad because I had put in so much work for it, but like also, if you've got bleed, just embrace it and only edit out the parts that conflict.
yeah, after a while, like for me, it's almost like the Matrix of like when I see waveforms now, I can almost see the words being said because I've edited that so much.
Yeah.
So
You know what everyone's looks like.
yeah, I know what.
Or the
You can also, like, if you're super worried about it, I think like you can set up a gate that catches the bleed.
Yeah.
And if do you want me to go more into that?
I got it here.
Well, I use Audacity, so it's a little less
Okay.
advanced.
Well, no, but Audacity does have a gate effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the latest release does.
I think I tried that and I ended up just cutting off. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to play with it. It's a little tough, but
But it will take, basically what an AutoGate does is it takes out everything under a certain volume.
Yeah.
So if my volume is -6 to -14 or whatever,
Yeah.
like, for the most part, yeah, I know. The numbers are hard. If I'm like breathing or clicking my teeth or like messing with the thing, like it's going to be, if I have good mic discipline, it's going to be a much lower volume, or the mic bleed is going to be very low volume.
yeah. And Steph brings up a good point. Mic discipline will do more
Mm.
for your will do more for your post work than anything. Make sure your actors are good 4 to 6 inches away from the mic.
Yeah,
If they're up, you're gonna hear every lip smack.
I try to do that lanes throughout the recording.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically auto-gating will take out everything under that certain volume, and it's
Yes.
This is I have that up here. What you were saying about not wanting to go through and clip it. This is a show I do. I do go through the entire show and clip all the dead space out.
Yeah,
There's
I
dogs
I
barking,
do
there's
too.
AC. Some shows, like you said, it's just there's no time for that. So that's what this in Adobe Audition, it's called Dynamics. I can add a noise gate. Here, I normally set it at -30 decibels, and that generally takes out anything that's not.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people go like, "Oh man, what's going on?" It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we want to make sure you still hear whatever's happening here.
Yeah.
This is a show that has pretty good mic discipline. What type of microphones do you use per chance?
Samsung Q2U.
Okay. Shout out to the Q2U. It's one of my favorite microphones because it is very affordable, but it is dynamic, so you do kind of have to come up close to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the good thing about that is it's generally not picking up around the table like a compressor would. Cool. So let's actually move on. I almost forgot. Today's September 1st, right? Happy International Podcast Month, everybody.
Yeah.
Woo!
What does that mean? I love podcasts. It's great. So since we just kind of went off on microphones, let's go ahead and do a quick talk about microphones. So just go around the table. What microphones do you guys use, and is there any situation that you upgraded from, or any reasons why you don't use a certain one?
Don't start with me. Go that way.
Okay, so back in the dark era of 2010, I was using PKG 120s in a conference room. So that was pretty much it. Now all my actors have their own studios, so we're all over the board right now.
So the mics that I use or whatever the recording sends me. What I was doing with Blood Crow Stories is we were using actually we were partnered with the Land Radio Theater Company, so we were using their requests, but they were using mostly condenser microphones. I myself have used Audio-Technica AT2020s, which are it's a really affordable condenser microphone. I personally use now a Rode Podcaster for my streaming and everything I do. There's a lot of good mics you can get out for under $100. SM58, SM57s, you'll never go wrong with those.
Yeah, I use an SM58 for all my stuff. Go to a pawn shop, get a used one.
Yeah.
They're really cheap and really effective.
Don't think because you see Joe Rogan that you have to get an SM7B. Okay.
I mean, I'm also gonna say, like, the phone you have in your hand, an $800 piece of equipment that you have and carry with you every day. A microphone on an iPhone is better than a lot of honestly beginner USB mics.
Even plugging the headphones into an iPhone, like those mics are solid.
Yeah.
So really use what you got. Like you can always upgrade later.
Yeah.
But
most microphones, like on the more affordable side, like the really expensive ones do a lot of the work that you can still do to them, type of thing. Later on. So if you're looking for a specific sound, like you can still get that from cheaper, more affordable microphones.
above on my recommendations list is the Samsung Q2U. It's
There it is.
$70. I actually was on. You can sometimes get cheaper. Reverb is your friend.
Yeah.
It's a used gear for all music gear. But
Yeah.
Reverb is your friend.
Anyone here in the greater Atlanta area?
I guess
Okay. We got a few. So Music Go Round in Duluth. It's a used instrument store. I'm sure they have others in other states. I just know of the one in Duluth. You can find great deals on microphone. They get microphones all the time. You can find. I've found a $1,200 guitar for $600.
Oh,
So
Not
microphone,
fun.
and they have microphones, interfaces,
Yeah.
speakers, like anything you can possibly
what
want.
was the name of it again?
Music Go Round,
Thank you, sir.
and it's in Duluth, but they also have stores around the country.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
So we were talking XLR, USB, all these different connectors. So
Yeah.
if a lot of when you're doing your podcast, you have to think about what's my recording setup? Is everybody in the same room? Because then I can't have everybody recording onto a separate computer because you're gonna get a bunch of echo. So you do have to record like we're doing right now using an SM58, which is what these guys are, or a similar dynamic microphone. If you're recording remotely, you obviously want to use USB. That's why the Q2U is really, really nice. It's got both connections. But
And so everyone can see it, we're running this into a Zoom L12 mixer.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, so and this is also connected up to our stream. So all this audio is going into the stream.
Yeah.
So, Zoom products, Zoom H2s, H4s, I think someone already said that you were recording into that. So you don't just need the microphone, you need if you're going to use an XLR mic, you need the interface.
I would just recommend one program that does everything for you. It's called Acid Music Pro, I think is the name.
Okay.
I'm not
interesting.
familiar with that. What is that?
Yeah, that was interesting. We'll get into
I think that's a different topic.
Yeah,
This is
all.
It's-
That makes sense.
that was later tonight. With these, one thing you also need to look at with microphones is pickup patterns. So we talk about like how close you need to be to the mic, and sometimes it's these really weird words like cardioid. What does that mean? Well, hey, there's a little fun little thing right down here. Does anyone know what cardioid patterns are?
Yes.
Excellent. So for that microphone, that's what this is.
In different directions.
Yep, they call a little button.
All directions.
So you can see it picks up differently here.
I like calling it a HUD kind of bug, but you can call it a
That one's true. And Scott, you mentioned condenser mics.
Yeah.
I want to tell the difference between dynamic and condenser. No, those are the other color patterns.
So the polar patterns you see up here, most dynamic mics are omnidirectional, so it's all around. Whereas typically with condenser mics, you get the cardioid or even like the super cardioid pattern, which rejects a lot of the rear, so you don't pick up as much noise coming from the back, but it's condenser mics are much more sensitive, so you'll maybe pick up a lot more room tone, a lot more breath.
but in a specific direction.
Yeah.
Those are better if you have treated walls, generally.
Yeah. And one thing we don't talk about as much, and can be considered, is a shotgun microphone. You've probably seen them on top of cameras on like Hollywood sets because they are very directional. So if you're pointed like this mic's pointed at me, but if I move over here, it still picks up. With a shotgun mic, if I move off just a little bit, it doesn't pick you up.
Yeah.
And those are great for use a lot of sound stages use those. I can think of like Critical Role and those type of shows, where everybody's in the room around D&D table. You point a couple shotgun mics at people, you don't pick up nearly as much of the ambience in the room and everything like that.
I've also seen some people use it to pick up like the dice roll or
Yep.
something like. If you're doing a live show, you'll do it to get the audience crowd noise, just to add that.
The dice roll.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So.
I for sure put like fake dice rolls in my car.
Oh, really? So if you have if you're still going to record remotely, but I have an SM58, it's XLR, so I can't hook it right into my laptop. What do you need? Who wants to take that one?
Interface.
In your face? What?
Yes.
Friday.
So most. Oh, getting a lot of feedback. A lot of microphones, especially, and this was sort of something one of my professors was telling me, the more affordable or more like packaged like microphone thing that you're getting, if it's like, oh, this is everything you need, you just plug and play. What that means is it has all the various steps that you need to get the audio to go from, the sound waves and compression to digital information back into for virtual sound waves and all that. And so the more, like, I guess, like a great way to set up your toolkit is to understand what those different phases or what those different steps are. One of which is, there's like the preamps and things like that. But there is the interface, and some microphones will come with their own interface, especially if they have little like knobs and things and buttons on them. It has an interface in it, but you still will want an interface, whether it's a large mixer, something you're recording onto.
So a USB microphone essentially has the interface within the microphone. That's why you can just plug it directly into your computer and it'll pick it up. If you're using an XLR like this, we have it now. I mentioned we have it running into the board, which is a type of interface. It's a larger interface, has more inputs. But next to it, behind the laptop here, is the Scarlett 2i2, which has two inputs. 2 inputs, 2 outs. And that's what like Gabe was saying. It'll take the audio sound pressure and convert it into digital information to go into your DAW. So
typically the larger the interface, I'm not saying literally like there's a separation of the actual size, but the larger, more sophisticated the interface, the more accurate it will do that without taking in like extra information like ambient electrical currents and things like that. So if you get like $100 microphone that is just plug and play, understand that part of that $100 is your interface, as opposed to if you get a $100 mic and a $100 interface.
Right. And interfaces come in different shapes and sizes. Generally, it's either
Colors.
1 channel, 2 channels, and then above. For example, my interface at home is a Scarlett 18i20, which is an 8-channel interface. But I'm doing music. That's way overblown for a simple podcast. I do music production, so that's why I have it. But generally, a 2-track interface or something like a Zoom H4. That's it, because a Zoom H4 can be used as an interface as well as a remote recording device.
Yeah. We used to record on a Tascam something.
Yeah.
There were numbers.
It was a digital recorder.
Yeah.
That was
plug into it.
So yeah, that was before the USB interface came to be. Is there was digital recorders, which predates tape recorders, which Steph here has worked on.
I really need to get better at knowing the numbers of things, because I'm just like, it's a
No, you don't. No, you don't. Because here's a secret that most people are going to be too afraid to tell you. If you don't know how to do something, just Google it.
Yeah,
Every time I edit something, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to. How do I do this? And I type, how do I?
Yes.
And my computer just fills in Premiere Pro.
And there's also a ton of YouTubers that do like mic reviews and stuff like that. So
I refuse to watch a video. I won't watch video tutorials.
What about an audio one?
Hold on, we got a question here.
Oh, it's a total tangent, so.
Oh, okay.
What do you like?
Yeah, mine's a total tangent too, whenever you're ready for it.
We're ready, I think.
Take it away.
All right, so my question is kind of an ergonomics efficiency question. On behalf of my co-host and editor here, he ends up doing a lot of really quick micro edits when I start doing ums, you knows, and dramatic pauses, so that I am not turning into a poor Captain Kirk impersonation on my podcast. So since the shot collar hasn't been working to solve that particular problem, do you have any tricks or hacks that you use in terms of your interface or that kind of stuff to kind of speed up having to jump around and do a lot of really quick micro edits like that?
I know. One of our lead actors would take pauses you could drive a truck through. And I spent many an hour just cutting that down. Just to hit the 30-minute limit.
There are a lot of times that a lot of the people on Critical Role are like the professional GMs, but they're also like really funny, like improv-y people. And so things like dramatic pauses it's not quite their thing. They're more about filling space. And so there's times where there's like I will actually cut audio and put in a little bit of space. Because the character will say something and it's like, he didn't let that sit at all. But yeah, it really is. I mean, if you want to get that specific and you want to play with the spacing and the timing, you're going to have to take that.
It's a test.
Unless you have a better answer.
Yeah, so for ums and things like that, there are a lot of AI tools that are coming out. So if you use just script, I know the enemy. But like in the script, you can highlight every and just delete it in the transcript. And then I also, what I do is I will hit play and I will kind of just like, because I have to listen through it to edit for quality anyway. So like I'll delete 2 or 3 paragraphs worth of ums and keep listening just so that because sometimes you really can't cut out an just it like flows into the next word too mushy. Yeah.
Or it's a good
It's a type.
Or it's a good
Yeah. There's if it's in the line, it's like, I don't really know.
Yeah, exactly. So cutting them out through that is a really, really beneficial tool if you're trying to micro edit. Also things like pauses in at least in Audition, and I'm not sure about Audacity, but in Audition you can delete pauses. So for someone like me, who I'm like, everything needs to run at the speed of light, no pauses, no time for pauses. I just shorten. You can decide how long or how short you want breaths to be or the pauses to be. And if there is a big long break, it just cuts it down. It reads the whole file and cuts it down automatically for you, so you don't need to like go through and keep.
Can you say?
Is that-
Can you set the pause? Because in drama you want some pause.
Yeah, you can set it however long you want.
Yeah, it'll mark them
Nice.
first.
It marks them
Oh,
first,
alright.
and then you can like delete all or clear all, and like you can set how long you want that pause to last.
So is that like an actor for you?
I don't know.
Which is like a set of commands.
Right.
Basically, like you hit a set of commands and it basically separates the audio.
I hit diagnostic, delete, silence,
Okay.
scan.
So there might be.
delete. I don't know.
But it's a
There's probably a hotkey for it.
There's a way. I know. I used to use Pro Tools. I've since recovered it. But I know with Pro Tools, there's a way to set up a macro where, like I said, if you have like an extended period of silence or it's below a certain dB, it'll cut the audio and then you can decide to delete it or adjust it.
Now that works also. That works better when you have like one thing of audio at the end type of thing. Because if you're doing multiple tracks and you're going to truncate
Yeah,
audio,
like a stereo track.
everything's going to be wobbly in the background. So yeah, it's for when you you've finished your edits, or if you're just recording to like a big stereo track type of thing.
When we're saying stereo versus mono
bunch of
tracks, does
mono
everyone
tracks.
understand kind of what we're talking
If
about?
everyone's recording onto one thing, or if everyone's in separate tracks. If everyone's in separate tracks, then when you truncate that audio, you cut out all the silence. Then the one person who's just been patiently waiting their turn is suddenly talking at the exact same time. as silence.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Just always make sure they snack or something. You gotta line it up. I use Descript. It's an amazing tool. You can literally click a button that says delete all filler words, and it will just do it. You can shorten.
I don't trust the robots that much yet.
Exactly.
I'm still doing it myself.
I trust them only as far as I can
Because
go,
sometimes-
and I'm not very strong.
And we talked, and we mentioned it before. Sometimes you want the little pauses because maybe you have an interview and someone's being thoughtful, so you ask them a question and they're giving it some thought, and there's an or there, but that can be useful.
Yeah, Descript would be because I've used a similar tool to find to peaks in audio.
Yeah.
And it'll highlight the peaks, which that's also in Audacity, I believe. I've used that to find them, and then I can personally edit them. type of
Murder
thing.
each one, boom.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of just asking the algorithm to just get rid of everything uniformly. Similarly, something like Descript would be an excellent tool for what you're talking about with because then you can personally choose, but you don't have to spend the time listening to your audio to find it.
And I had a lot of corporate stuff, so sometimes they go, "Hey, I talked about blah blah blah, and can you cut that out?" So now instead of going through, because they don't give you a timestamp, so why would they? I can go ahead and find it in Descript. But we're not going to worry about the screen. I have it up, so if anyone wants to take a look at it, it just gives you the transcript. It also exports the transcript, which is great, and a cool tool as we get into recording. Descript just bought Squadcast, which is a remote recording tool. Has anyone heard of Squadcast or Riverside? Riverside.
Yeah.
So Squadcast is a Riverside competitor. Now Descript bought it. So with your Descript subscription, you also get that remote recording tool. Yeah. So the next step, did that pretty much kind of go through?
Yeah, no, that's
Excellent,
great,
yeah.
thanks.
Those are tools, and again, those are tools that end up cost, that have a fee associated to them. So sometimes it's all about budget and what's worth it or not. Yeah, so obviously the biggest thing you want to remember with your podcast, now you got your audio set up, you're ready to go, you got your content, got to hit record. So where do you all hit record? How do you guys record in person? And we get to stuff I want you to talk about.
Well, I was gonna say, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Let's look this up first.
I don't use Riverside. I mean, I have used Riverside.
Oh, so for your shows, what do you record with?
Oh, I use Zoom.
Yeah, there you go.
So you have to. It's important with Zoom. So all of my interview style shows are through Zoom. But you want to make sure that if you're doing that you set it to record locally to your computer and make sure your settings are right. That it gives you 2 different tracks. Because like Zoom is horrible if you're recording to the cloud. It can't separate the tracks. And so if your, dog is barking while I'm talking, there's no way to fix that.
Yep.
But you can if you have the right settings.
Yeah, always, and one that's a great point that Steph brings out is like always have remote recordings or recordings recorded remotely. I recently had an issue. Well, it wasn't my issue, but one of the hosts didn't want to ask the guests to record locally. Thankfully, the co-host knocked some sense into him. So what I did was I did get the individual files, so it was fine. But unfortunately the guest mic was picking up a lot of noise. So what I did is I took a screenshot of a snippet that shows the noise, and I sent it to him. And I was like, by the way, the next time you think you don't need this separated, this is all noise. This is all hum. Don't do that. Don't be lazy.
When the hum so people can see it.
Yeah, no, and there's things you can do around it, but once you get that in the recording, like I said, you get the dog barking, you get the dishwasher going off or something. Once that's in, there's some cleaning you can do, but then it starts affecting the voice. So as far as like when to record, you start recording early. Hit record 5-10 minutes before you get started. Always have that extra time. Number one, if you kept, there's a term with music recording, and this is just, I think, in recording in general, is always be recorded. If data, especially now, like hard drives and data space, hard drives are so cheap now. You can get a 10 terabyte hard drive for like a couple $100. You can get a 1 terabyte for like $50.
Yeah, hard drives.
There's no excuse not to hit record early, and sometimes you actually catch gold because maybe the actor is running their line, out loud, and they just nail it. They just nail it that time just because they weren't paying attention. They were focused on the action, so now you just got that great take, and you can clip that into to later on, via the script.
Yeah, always that 100 times that. Just start recording as soon as the actors are in front of the mics. Sometimes, like you said, there's been a lot of times I grabbed stuff from that portion before we actually went through and yelled action and all that. Just because, like you said, they're not really, they're just kind of running their lines and they're not thinking too hard about it. Sometimes they overthink when they're doing their lines, and it's gone. Yeah, I know, hard to imagine.
I'm also an actor, so
How many actors are in here?
all right, so y'all know.
I act like I know what I'm doing.
So that would be I would absolutely recommend. And you also get nice ringtones sometimes from their outtakes.
It's so easy to make a ringtone.
That's right.
Tony, do you record all in person?
We did actually. We started out recording in a conference room.
Oh, that's right. You said now
So,
everyone's in a studio.
but eventually we moved to the artsy studio.
Okay, cool.
So that was nice. And now
And does everyone, I apologize, does everyone have like their own, is it a studio space?
it's
And
an
everyone
actual
has their own
studio.
booth?
RT has an actual studio.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it's four
Oh,
or
it's
6 mics, I think.
Beautiful.
One director, one recording engineer.
Are you hiring?
And now they're
It's in Georgia,
yeah, and they're also a
You have to move here.
nonprofit. So
Okay.
which you're welcome to do so.
yes,
That's cool.
but now I have the actors all with their remote. They're all using their own gear.
Got it. Cool.
We'll sort through it when I get it.
That's awesome.
It's good. Yeah, so like I've worked in a few shows where they start recording with Zoom, everyone gets together, make sure your mic settings are good, because if it's remotely, you can't tell if someone's not
Right.
recording out of their MacBook laptop because they forgot to select the microphone. And then when you're ready, go ahead, hey, we're gonna go ahead and start. But you've started 5 minutes before, let's say, so if there's anything good there that you like, then do a snap or something, that lines everything up for the editor, and then you can slide over.
And
Oh, that's it, yeah.
game, were you about to say?
Oh, I was going to answer the question before.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry.
you're good. It was just to reiterate. We record our podcast. We communicate over Zoom. We record locally. We record on Audacity, just because it's the best freeware for all of my other peeps who don't do Audacity or don't do music stuff. They are audacious people. But we don't do. They don't have their own DAWs, so they just have their microphones that myself or other audio people recommended to them. They have their interfaces, plugged to their computer.
Mhm.
We do the mic checks. I have them send me mic checks over our Google Drive, so they'll all just record their own mic check, send that to me. I will listen to that separately. It works best on my phone with nice headphones. And then I'll be like, wow, yeah, Alon, your audio sounds really bad. I think you're on your webcam mic, maybe, or something. And that'll happen every now and then. There was one time where he recorded the entire episode like that because I wasn't present for this episode recording. And so, this is a secret. Twitch, forget this, okay? He had to redo the whole episode.
We've had to do that.
So he had to listen to himself make sounds and be like, oh my god, that's funny, guys.
So
Right, wait, Gabe, delete that one.
he had the track that like it sounded bad, but he had it.
Yes.
So when that happened to us, one of our players is on Doctors Without Borders, and like I don't remember where he was, PR maybe, but like he recorded on his phone in the lobby of a hotel, and surprising no one, it got lost because his phone crashed or whatever. So he had nothing. So it was 5 of us and a blank recording, and so he listened back and had to make up whatever he said. So he would listen, and then he would listen. There was a pause, and our DM would be like, you rolled it good enough, or like that was a success or whatever. So he would backtrack and he would be like, 18. And just make up a number that would have passed the check. And then he's trying to make jokes that we all laugh to, but he doesn't know the first joke that he said. Like, oh my god, nightmare. Also, it's one of our best stories.
So
Pretend to be surprised.
No, listen to our
no,
podcast and
no.
try and find those episodes. You get a special treat.
Yeah.
So two things to that. One, the Olympics replaced audio years and years ago.
Yes.
So the reason I tell that story is like Steph's story, like Gabe's story. Yeah, it's a live play D&D, but you've got sometimes stuff happens.
That's like the one person was talking about those like nature documentaries where you see like the lion eating something and like there's no mic that's gonna pick that.
Yeah,
up.
you're not miking up a guy.
It's a guy in the studio going.
Yeah. So there's magic to be done. Also, one thing, and because Dave's team does this, and it makes life much easier. Clap sync.
Yeah.
If you're recording with multiple people, have them clap sync.
May I offer an alternative?
Ooh,
Because if you are running a show with a bunch of ding dongs, nobody is ever going to, and with like video delay on Zoom, clap syncs are really hard sometimes.
Yeah.
What I started doing is I would say, Scott, what's your timestamp? You would say, because if you've been recording for 2-3 minutes, you would say 2:34. Tony, what's your timestamp? You tell me, give whatever. I write down when I started asking timestamps.
Yeah.
So I know to jump exactly to that part of their track.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this might just be a me problem. This might be an Adventure Incorporated issue. But like Anthony would ask for an everybody clap. And you got
That's a you problem.
I don't think it's just me. I don't think it's just
No,
us
yeah.
problem.
It's not just you. So we kind of, I think actually coming from a conversation that Josh had with y'all, doing that, when we started using time.is, which is a website
Yes.
that has its atomic clock. And so we'll all like, instead of going, all right, 3, 2, 1, clap, we would go, all right, at
10 seconds.
10 seconds, everybody clap. And it's still a little off. As far as we go.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it gets it at least close to sync, and then you can adjust the timing of the audio in the edit.
But we for sure have jabronies that like a lot. Well, none of my whole cast, but we'll be doing something like, all right, clap at 37, and then Alana will be like,
Oh, that was
Yeah.
that was the good thing, and I'm sure Tony will back me on. That's a good thing about doing a
In
pre-recorded.
person.
Well, not just in person, but also doing a scripted show where if they start going on, you just kind of jingle the keys on and be like, yep, back on script.
There is a script.
Shot collars do work.
Yeah, it works. Great.
So I know I want to be able to get some more questions in here. So yes.
Quick question. So this is kind of a high-level creative process question for the editors. Let's say you're working under a tight deadline of like a weekly episode, something that's due, and you're looking at your metaphorical editing table and you see you've got 2 or 3 different bits from which to choose, where it's like, oh, okay, I'm running low on time. I need to prioritize. I'm either going to throw away this one, or this one. Can you please talk to us a little bit about like your rule of thumb? As an artist, you're trying to decide between like, oh, this is the integrity of the piece. Maybe I'll do this one. No, wait, this one would actually be much quicker. What is your thinking process for prioritizing those kinds of little, do I toss this bit or this bit?
I would say audience first. So
Yes.
like if it's something that affects the story, keep the audience in mind. If it is like you've got just 3 funny things, that's the only difference is that they're different kinds of funny. Think about any engagement you've had in the past with your audience, what they seem to respond positively to. It's for them. If it furthers the story along or if it gives some insight into a character, I would prioritize that over fluff pieces that might be quicker. But definitely just like audience first. And if you have that mentality, usually if you've listened to enough of the show, you'll have a sense of what the audience wants.
I've for sure have gone through several, like, we try to shoot for under an hour for episodes, but since it takes exponentially longer to edit, whatever the time is, there are times where like the episode will be like an hour, the recorded time is like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But the whole, like, they kept on story pretty well the whole time. Like, guys, no, it's too long. What have you done to me? And so I will go through, and if there's like a bit that they do that really like that does not shine, it dies. It goes away. It becomes like that. That's sort of what you were talking about with like, if I have to prioritize, then anything that does not like repeatedly after the 14th listen I've gone through make me laugh still, I'm like, go away. Plus, we did specifically start doing pre-roll and post-roll, like little goofy bits. So the episode starts with some silly, usually ends with some silly. And that's where other things will go as well. As long as it's under a minute, I'll be like, oh yeah, this was a hilarious thing that's only in context after a certain bit. I'll cut that out and put at the end of the episode. But yeah, for sure, there have been times that I'm just like, this wasn't as funny as they thought it was.
In my case, it's knowing who I'm working with. With Blood Crow Stories, was my co-producer and I spending time together. Me sending review files for her to check out and get feedback on. We also know if we have like one specific part that we're trying to get a tone on, we'll have it recorded 6 or 7 times so we get different tonalities. Also for QPR, in my case for Goblins Growlers or QPR, these are friends of mine. I know their sense of humor. I know kind of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, I've listened to past episodes, so I understand kind of how, you know, what they find funny and what their audience usually responds to. So, you know, I just kind of go with that. And it was funny because I went from a scripted show to a very non-scripted show. So the first time I edited for Goblins and Growlers, I sent it to them like a week ahead of time. And it was like, hey, if you guys want to can you review this and make sure everything's fine? And they're like, why would we do that? They're like, we trust you, you're the editor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had to unlearn, like, okay, just they trust me. So, you know, and I take that trust seriously, don't get me wrong, but these are friends of mine. I know what they're looking for. And if they got feedback, they'll let me know.
That's why I said it's important to know what the relationship between the writer and editor is. Because if they trust you, you do the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've reached out to audience people that I know and said, this was an improv, what do you think? And it's somebody who kind of knows the spoilers, knows what's going to happen, and I trust their input. Because sometimes you just can't make the decision. You're too
That's
close
fair.
to it.
And sometimes you just have to make the
And
decision.
sometimes,
to go.
yeah, just do it.
If it's the night before, you know, and I've done this. I've done up until like an hour was the release time. You just, all right, we're cutting it and go. And if it's not perfect, fine. Then you got way more episodes going on. Like one bad episode is not going to crush your show.
And I think that's an important note. Like with what I do, it's all scripted. So generally, the scripts for the season are written ahead of time. So before the actors even do the first table read, everything's written. Everything is recorded before, for a while anyway. Everything is recorded before the first episode drops. So at that point, once we've gotten that much done, you're never really going to be up against I've got an hour to do this, or
I wish we had been smart enough to do that. So
Right.
I wouldn't have gotten burnt out like I did.
Yeah, so I think with scripted stuff, it's a lot. You build it in more. It takes more work, I think.
Yes.
Yes,
But you build in all that extra time. So
But you
you're
give-
up against the clock.
but that's the thing. You give yourself that time, so
Right.
that
Yes.
way, if you know you need to make like with Blood Crow, we tried to record ahead of time. We weren't good about it, and we've straight up had people leave during the season.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And so that like now Ellie's scrambling to rewrite the script. I'm scrambling to schedule new people in or figure out how I'm going to cut around this. You know, if you're doing something scripted, even if it's not scripted, if you can give yourself more time and more recordings, it's going to be a lot less stressful.
Yes. Did you have a question? Yeah.
Question on you?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, this has been amazing, beginner. My question is, how can you add music without copyright issues?
Yes, so we that was the next step of software. When you walked in, I had some fun royalty-free music from a website called Soundstripe.
Mhm.
There's other ones like Epidemic Sound that they have royalty-free libraries that you can choose from. And Soundstripe even has a fun, so it does music, video, B-roll, and sound effects. So I do music and sound effects. It also now has AI search where it's powered by ChatGPT where I can put in. So if I'm doing audio design and I'm like, okay, I want to find horror theme in the forest, I can just type that in and it'll find similar things like that. So if I put like sushi, so music in a sushi restaurant,
From the 80s.
boom,
Are you connected
wait for
to
it. I am. Then I'll play this.
Calm. It says calm.
Yeah, and-
Reflective, romantic.
And so it also has like things like that. Soundstripe is great. Again, it's not a free resource, but Soundstripe I've used religiously for 3 years. Please sponsor me. It's a great resource.
What was that other one you said?
Epidemic Sound is another one. I haven't used it, but I know a lot of YouTubers especially use it. Have you?
Humble. I was going to say Humble Bundle
Yeah.
is doing a lot of music, royalty-free music, royalty-free sound effects. There's also Foley recording, which we did for Blood Crow, because we had to do it was a horror podcast, so we had a lot of violent scenes. So that required breaking a lot of vegetables.
Yeah, lettuce and
Not
tomatoes, man.
selling them.
You make your own stuff.
Thank you, that's good.
There's also Incompetent, Kevin Cloud's.
I don't know.
It's Kevin, his name is Kevin Cloud. It's Incompetent, it's all music, but it's very, some of it can be very stressful.
Orchestra.
Thank you. Music, some of it is
Orchestral,
very, yeah, and you can pretty much sort by mood, like which are dark, horror. You can, if you download from it, you gotta give them credit, but anybody else can use that same music unless you actually buy the music from it.
The good thing about Soundstripe is you can incorporate the YouTube ID. If you have a YouTube channel, you can incorporate it with Twitch, and it's good. It pretty much covers everything that's not live. So if I did a live theater show, I couldn't use it, technically. It also does broadcast. You can get broadcast right. So Soundstripe is all in one. It's really great. Again, it's not a free resource, but I definitely really enjoy that. I actually have a playlist that's just like corporate podcast intro and outros for all my corporate colleagues. Like, here's a playlist. What do you think? And then they go like, oh, I like this one. This is fun and bouncy.
And if you want to learn a little bit about composing music, myself and Gabe were on a panel on Sunday at 12 Tuesday.
That's right, we are.
Yeah, back here in Gallery 7, where we talk about composing for a narrative.
Yes, yeah. That's why I was like, please somebody else answer it, because I just make all the music for QPR. It's exhausting and fun.
How do you make all the music?
Oh, well,
We'll tell you Sunday.
we'll tell you more on
So
Sunday
there's
at,
your
at,
There you
at
go.
2 p.m. But I mean, it sometimes takes a long time, but sometimes not a long time. That's the mystery of it.
I think we have one question in the back.
But yeah, supporting artists if that is within your budget.
Okay, one more, and then we'll go one more here, and then we'll go even back.
I have daughters. My son does all the editing now, so I understand some of what you're saying, but he's not here.
Okay.
But what, so we know that. But on my question is, what laptop do you like to use?
Ooh, solid question.
The one I own.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I had to turn my work one back in.
Yeah.
I'm having to get a new one, so that's why I'm asking. I did have a.
I'll say the like
Yes.
the laptop, like the technology that you use, like there are certain things that like a MacBook,
Yes.
that is it's going to have the materials in it that you need for the most part. But like if you're talking about like a non-Apple product type of thing, you have more.
Apple, he doesn't, that's why I'm.
There you go. I was gonna say you have more ability to customize. The important things to look for are like what kind of storage, RAM, and audio card are the big things for audio stuff. And I guess video card too is important.
Not so much for audio.
No, video record all of your podcasts.
Start video.
Okay, well then never mind. Video card.
Hashtag pivot to video.
I've used both Mac and PC. I currently run a PC that I built myself because I wanted to customize the parts, and I didn't want to keep buying into Apple's ecosystem.
Yeah. Cheers for that.
So that's the only thing with Apple. You're buying into Apple, and you're going to pay a premium as a result. But also with Apple, especially with creative like audio and video, it just works. Like
It is
that's
all
one thing.
designed to communicate with itself.
You know, with Windows, you sometimes get driver issues and firmware issues and things like that. So it's really just preference of what you can afford, and purely for audio, you don't need much. You can get away with like a $300 Dell or HP laptop for just.
We ran into trouble when we started doing video.
Yeah, and video is a much more exponential cost. So
Yes.
It's a lot different.
yeah, you have to weigh in you got to figure out what you're trying to do, and work backwards from that. So if you're doing video, then yeah, you're going to need a higher system.
So unfortunately, we are at time. Some of us will stick around, so if you have any additional questions, did everybody have fun? Thank you for
Hey
taking
guys,
this.
we'll be here. So if you have more questions, feel free to.
Don't forget the DragonCon charity partner for 2023 is Cure, and our track sponsor for 2023 is Zakat. I'm Anthony Vito. Let's go ahead and just say who you are, where you're from, and we'll call it a day.
Where I'm from. I'm
Oh,
Gabriel
sorry, what you
Perez,
do? That's what I meant.
and I'm from Richmond, Virginia, allegedly. Or I just made it up. You don't know. Yeah, I'm a professional audio engineer. You can find me on Instagram at Amethyst Audiomancer or Goblins and Growlers Discord.
Tony Strachey, I'm primarily a writer. You can find me at Tony the Scribe on everything.
On everything.
Everything.
And pick up on
And
everything.
pick up one of these, yes, come get a ribbon.
I'm Scott Moore. I edit for Goblins and Growlers and occasionally QPR. Again, make sure if you guys want, we have the Discord QR code down here for the digital media track. If you got more questions or you just want to network, yeah, we're all on there. You want to network with some like-minded people, come join us. We're a friendly bunch.
And I'm Steph Perniola, and I've got a QR code up here for myself.
Yes.
If you want
Scan
to
it.
find it home.
Scan it.
URL 3. And I'm at Grubus for Life on all socials.
Yep. I'm Anthony Vito at Anthony Vito _. I've edited a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of different places. Come take a business card. Have a great rest of your DragonCon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If anyone has any questions, we're sticking around, so feel free to come.